Hey, welcome everyone to the other side of addiction. This is a podcast that explores various aspects of addiction, potentially focusing on personal stories of recovery, scientific perspectives, societal impacts, or related topics. This podcast often features discussions with experts, individuals in recovery, therapists, and advocates to offer insights and support to those affected by addiction or seeking more information about it. Welcome to another episode, The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richardson. Today, with our guest, Chris, we're going to be talking about a fulfilled dream. Now, I know what his fulfilled dream is because I read his bio, but we're going to allow Chris to talk about where his life was and where it is today, because you guys have heard me say on this show many times. Matter of fact, I just got done talking with someone a couple days ago to stop making excuses. If they want a better life, take the leap, no matter how scared they are, get themselves into a program that works for them, because what happens afterwards, as long as you stay working at it, your life turns into something amazing that you'll be somewhere you never ever thought your life would be. And Chris is over there shaking his head because this man has lived it. So Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Dude, Al, what a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to chatting and hanging out with you.
Awesome. And so am I. So share with our listeners a little bit about your life, and we'll just kind of start there.
Wow, that's a super broad question because I've lived a pretty interesting life. But my name's Chris Dreisbach, and I'm a human being. You know, at the core of all things, I'm a human being, and I feel like I've introduced myself as a lot of things over the years, like a healthcare CEO and a felon and a criminal and number 0131644. And I've been introduced as a lot of different things. And I think at the end of the day, all of those things shape the human being that is Chris Dreisbach. And that human being is somebody who is attempting to help as many humans find peace and happiness as possible, hopefully purpose along with it. And at this point, I'm really, 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 really hyped up about being a dad. And that's been my main focus these last few months, and I've been leaning into it heavily and loving every minute of it.
That is so cool that you said that, because, I can just tell just by your demeanor, even when we first introduced ourselves, when you first came on, that's what it's all about, right? I mean, seriously, it's priceless. It is priceless when it comes to family. It's priceless when it comes to the love for ourselves, the love for life. And I became a papa almost 13 years ago, and I have three amazing, amazing grandkids. And I tell you what, they have changed my life, Chris, in so many different ways. And when you can put that focus in the joy of life, it just, you want to wake up the next morning and you want to see what God has got for you that day, right?
Absolutely. I mean, see, I spent 15 years of my life essentially hyper focused on business and really just always thinking about how I can further the company, how I can further the next company, how I can do this, how I can do that. To the tune of sometimes 100 plus hours a week. I'm business focused, and I never thought that I would even have a child, let alone two. And it took a long time, even after having them, that to like connect, because I was always so focused outward, so focused out here, so focused out there, and it was never really in my plans to be a dad. And in the last 5 6 months, I've really just kind of stepped back from a couple of my roles that had taken the most of my time so that I could give that time to my kids. And the results have been pretty wonderful. The deepness of the connection and just the love that's grown up. Like, I really truly feel that thing that most parents talk about, that their kids are the greatest thing they've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah. And oops, there you go. You slipped off my screen for a second, but you're back. Um, yeah, and it's crazy because when you talked about working 100 hours a week, I mean, what you do, you work like in the addiction field. I'm in the recovery community and stuff like that too. And that's an addiction as well. We're not talking drugs and alcohol or porn or sex or gambling or eating. I mean, fitness, even work becomes an addiction. Anything that takes us away from our inner being and ourselves, as well as our families, that's an addiction.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I was openly addicted to work, very openly for a lot of years, a whole lot of years. And it, caused a lot of strain in relationships and a lot of strain on family. And, I just at this juncture in my life, it's time to shift that gear. It's time to move into this new phase and really give a lot of the attention that I had focused on other things to my family. And I've been enjoying it pretty tremendously. I won't lie.
Yeah.
But it is an adjustment moving from just constant work, constant work, constant work to a 7-year-old and 2-year-old.
Holy cow. Well, let me ask you this, Chris. What flipped that light switch on for you to change direction?
Woo. Well, it's never really anything to do with me specifically, me making the decision, but my relationship of a few years ended rather poorly. And, it was just becoming more and more clear. I'd been debating it for about a year prior, debating stepping back from my role as CEO of Blueprints for Addiction Recovery. And I just could never really do it. I could never stop and just say, look, I'm not going to be the CEO anymore. That was a big part of my identity, a big part of my value, or at least I thought in my mind, my value to the community. And it just became glaringly obvious that my kids needed me and my family needed me. And I couldn't not do it anymore. So one day I called my then executive vice president, Ben McCoy, and said, "Hey man, I think it's time. Like, I think it's time to hand this role over to you and let you fly." And I'm so grateful that I did, because he is doing such a great job. In fact, I think I've said more than 5 times that he's at least 10 times better than I am. So I'm excited to see where Blueprints goes without me at the direct helm.
Yeah. And has that been difficult for you to step away? Because I know when you're in it, when you are so in it, I've helped my brother grow his concrete business, and he's just been a small outfit for 13, 14 years. He has never ever wanted to hire employees because he is so
Pain.
afraid of how the product would end up, because it's quality for him, right? He wants to be a different type of contractor that people don't gripe about, where to when he gets done, they are in total amazement of the cleanup, how everything looks. It would be hard for him, I know, to step away from that role and allow someone else to go in. He would still be that, um, oh my gosh, what do they call the bosses that are constantly over your shoulder?
Micromanager.
Micromanager. Yeah, I think he would still fall. Did you find that for yourself?
That is an ultra common theme amongst new entrepreneurs specifically. Uh, where, in the beginning of my business career in 2010, like, I wanted to oversee just everything. I want to make sure everything was perfect because it was my baby. And, like, I learned over time from wise, wise, wise people, way wiser than me, that other people are in fact better than me at most things. And if I find those people who do things exceptionally well, and I empower them to and allow them to do what they do exceptionally well, my life gets easier. My life grows. My life gets bigger. So by giving up that power, I gain. And
Yeah,
it took a long time for me to come to that conclusion, or at least believe what other people were saying. And what I discovered was, when I allow other people to do what they do exceptionally well, they do it exceptionally well. And if they do it for my company grows. So for your brother, uh, you might just have to find the right people and train those people to do it the way that he wants it done, and then oversee them. Maybe not in a micromanaging position, but it takes time. It takes a lot of time, and really just trust and faith are two of the biggest things. Because when you step back and step away from things, you have to trust that the people that you empower to do that job are going to do it and do it well.
yeah, yeah. And that is the big thing, is the trust. Definitely,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah.
Question: What got you to start the blueprints for addiction recovery?
Well, Blueprints started because I had a new life sober living. We started the first sober living community here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania in 2010. And it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew, and more people wanted to come join us and be a part of the family and have that, just support and space to be able to grow and live life in recovery. And after a while, we were watching the outpatient centers around here just not really offer anything too individualized, anything too impactful, anything too different than the run of the mill, just basic, quick group check in, and that's it. And most of the folks who were living in our houses didn't even bother going to outpatient, didn't bother continuing with their treatment because it just wasn't presented in a way that was valuable enough for them to make the effort. And one of my employees, of course not me, noticed that. And she came to me and she said, Chris, we should really start an outpatient. To which I responded, no, I don't want anything to do with it because I don't want to deal with the government. I don't want to deal with paperwork. I just don't want it. And then the next week she said, Chris, should really start an outpatient. I said, nope. And the next week came and she said, Chris, we should really start an outpatient. Nope. And eventually she broke me down and I said, all right, let's look into it. And I made a call to my friend Ben, who was just a guy I knew who did websites and worked in treatment, great guy in recovery. And he said, Chris, I've been unfulfilled in my job. I'd really love to join you and do this treatment thing. And I was like, wow, like serendipitously, everything just started to fall into place. And Ben's good friend, Jesse, whom I've known for a good long time, was also working in treatment. And he was like, man, pretty unfulfilled over here. I'd really love to come join you and do this thing. And I was just like, all right, like let's do this. And the three of us and the employees, Brooke and Mike, another guy, Scott, were the original group of Blueprints for Addiction Recovery. We opened in 2016 with the idea, the delusional idea, the crazy idea that we could treat everybody on an individualized basis and still accept Medicaid, county funding, and people with no money, no insurance, and no nothing. And we called it our grand experiment. We ran around in 2016 and 17 and 18 talking about the grand experiment, not knowing if it would ever work, if we would survive. And lo and behold, here we are 8 years later, and you can, in fact, serve everybody. You can, in fact, help people, even if they don't have money. You can, in fact, do those things and survive as a business. So here to tell you, it's a thing.
That's really amazing. Because I really do believe when we have a calling, the universe or God, whatever anybody's belief is, it directs you to that area and it puts the right people in your life to make it happen. I mean, I would understand your fear on that, not wanting to deal with all the BS in the background, the red tape per se, right? Because I'm sure there's a lot of it. Because I was talking to my son-in-law about a friend of his that started a recovery center. And he's like, Pops, he went through almost like 2 years worth of crap just going through all the red tape to get it started. And I'm like, man, who would want to take the time to do that? However, if it's meant to be, it'll fricking happen.
I agree with that entirely. And I feel like I say it way too often to way too many people, but like the universe will always toss me where I'm needed, where I'm supposed to be. Whether that's good or bad, better or worse, the universe puts me where I need to be. And I
Yeah.
believe it wholeheartedly. I don't even stress too much where I am, who I'm talking to, what's going on, because I know I'm exactly where I need to be right here talking with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you see yourself 30 years ago doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, well, 30 years ago, I was 7. And
Oh, okay. Well, then let
sure
me
I thought
change
I'd be
that. I
like
should have said 20 years ago. So
30
30
years
years ago
ago.
for me, Chris, I was still 30.
Well, hey, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah.
But no, 30 years ago, I probably would have told you I wanted to be a card shop owner, a baseball card shop owner. And lo and behold, here we are at 37. I own a baseball card shop. So 7-year-old me
I love
did
it.
hope, did hope. Yes.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, 15 years ago, and it's another thing I like to talk about all the time is like my plans suck. If you had asked me in 2008 what I was going to do for the rest of my life, I would have told you I was going to be a waiter. I was going to wait tables and love that. I loved waiting tables. It was my passion, it was my heart, and it was how I made money. And lo and behold, I got fired from my job waiting tables. And the next day, I got a job at the treatment center I went to. And I drove 70 miles one way to this treatment center for $9 an hour to overwork myself for the benefit of the folks who were going through the Medicaid treatment center that I went through. And that experience really set my life up, because I may have lost $6,000 over the course of the year that I worked there, because it was, you know, $9 an hour doesn't really drive you very far.
Yeah.
But it set me up. I mean, it really kind of allowed me to learn this other side of recovery, the investment business. I don't know what the heck you want to call it, the treatment side. But I really got to learn a whole lot. They promoted me up into the detox coordinator position. I basically got a little closet of an office where I got a computer, and I had to start doing aftercare for all the people in detox who would come in and then leave 5 days later. And I had no degree, and I was just kind of doing whatever I could, whatever they asked me. And I was excited to do it. And I learned a whole lot more in that area. And then we started the recovery house because a bunch of my friends were about to be homeless at the same time. And that kind of launched into a whole bunch of other businesses, like the construction company we started so that we could give people access to a new trade, access to jobs, access to different things like that. And that exploded and started doing extremely well. And then it morphed into, I don't even know what company next, and then what other company next. And really over the course of it, I just discovered this love for entrepreneurship that had been in me for my entire life, going all the way back to selling candy out of a wagon when I was like 9 or 10, getting kicked out of school, you know?
Is that, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, is that how you're able to fund some of the recovery? Because we have two places here in Salt Lake. One's downtown Salt Lake City. The other one is north of Salt Lake City, Farmington, Utah. Both these programs are 100% free. Now you have to be accepted to go in. So when you go in and sit down on a bench, they may have you sit there for 8 hours to see if you're going to get up and leave. And if you don't, eventually someone will come out and talk to you, go, okay, so what's up? And if you're serious, you can go there. One's a 2.5 year program, the other's a 2 year program. However, it is 100% free. It will not cost you a dime, your parents a dime, your family a dime. It's not state funded, federal funded, no insurance. However, what they do is they have the #1 moving company here in the Valley. They have a construction outfit. They've got a donut shop that they're getting ready to open up.
Oh, that's
And the other place started the same thing. They did a moving company, they opened up a restaurant, and everyone who works in there are all people who are in the program. And they actually, while they're in the program, learning how to become a better person in society, learning who they are as an individual and truly loving themselves, they're making a living. So they can stay as long as they want. I mean, there's people there that I know who have been there 8 years and they're employees now, and now they're helping other individuals. And when you graduate and you decide to leave, you actually have money in your account to where you can start your life, instead of like most programs, they throw you back out on the street with nothing again, and you're going to go back to what's familiar to you.
Yep. I mean, that's an all too common tale right there, but I love to hear that there are places down in Salt Lake City doing that. And there's positives and negatives to kind of every treatment program and every place and every idea. There's always a positive and always a negative. And I personally love those places that give people opportunity to work, because that's been something that I've just loved my entire life, working. I always, always, always loved working. So anytime I had an opportunity to work, I take it. And there are some people who think that like programs like that are almost like slave labor, even though they're not. When you're compensated for your work, of course. But yeah, I love stuff like that. I really do. And giving people purpose is pretty much the only thing that drives recovery, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I mean, if you don't have purpose, you're not going to last long in recovery. And one of the main things is helping people find what that purpose is. And it doesn't even have to be one thing. I've found so many different purposes over the last 17 years. You just kind of keep an open mind and keep expanding and keep learning and keep reaching out to people and keep connecting and keep growing. And God, life is so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it sounds like just from what little time we've been on the show already, that's huge for you. And the people that you've surrounded yourself with is the purpose of helping other individuals. Because, and you know this, Chris, we cannot do it alone, right? It's impossible. Now, some of us don't have family and friends because of the certain choices that we've made. However, there's a higher power, whatever that higher power is for that individual. There's something there to help you along that journey. And without it, it's really tough to do it alone.
That's an absolute guarantee. And I tell you, in 2007, when I landed here in Lancaster County at the gatehouse, the halfway house I went to, I didn't have a whole lot of people in my corner. They weren't like lining up to be like, "Hey, good job, Chris. You went and got help." It was more like, "Oh, that guy," And thankfully, the halfway house gave me an opportunity to go out to different meetings and kind of begrudgingly introduce myself against my will. And I ran into some young guys who were excited about recovery, and these young guys showed me a different way to live. And I haven't let go of that different way to live for about 17 years now. And it's just awesome to think back to those moments. They were really so providential because I really I never wanted to go to Lancaster. I just wanted to go back downtown and give it another college try like I had the last 4 times and ended up in jail and failure over and over and over and over. My brain would tell me, now, you can go back and do it this time because something's different. And nothing was ever really different. It was always the same. I was always me, and nothing had changed here, and nothing had changed here until I landed in Lancaster and I found those guys who showed me weird program. It's a different way to live, these 12 steps, if you will. And they were kind of like my idiot's guide to finding the universe, the idiot's guide to finding myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, we need those. And did you find yourself coming up with reasons? I mean, why you didn't want to go, or and the reason where I'm going with this is I've been working with an individual who basically just broke down in tears and said, "My life sucks. No matter what I do, it seems to just implode on me. This is happening. This is happening. I think I'm heading in the right direction. Then I get shit on here, and then I get shit on there." And I had a really good conversation with this person. And when I talked about some places that I know would be a very, very good fit for him because they are there for the individuals, not the money. They're there for the individuals. It was one excuse after another. And I had to be blunt. I asked if I could speak openly, and he said, "Yeah." And I said, "You're coming up with excuses. You're coming up with every excuse you possibly can to keep your life in a freaking cesspool. But you're not happy in the cesspool,
That's the great dilemma. That is the great
right?"
dilemma we all face, man. And it really comes down to those simple base nature is, am I going to move? Am I going to take a step? And that's it. A lot of times I don't want to do things. I want to be real lazy. It's like one of my key shortcomings is I'm a lazy, lazy man. I'm probably the busiest lazy guy you'll ever meet. But in my brain, I always want to do nothing. I always want to just sit on a recliner and relax and lounge, and that's it. But oftentimes, opportunities will come up around me. And in order to take advantage of those opportunities, I have to get up off of my recliner. As painful and annoying as it might be, every time I get up off of my recliner, something beautiful happens, something miraculous happens, something happens that fills my soul, something happens that reminds me why I get up off of that recliner every single time somebody wants to talk to me, or every single time somebody wants to meet me, or every single time something is going on, I get up and go. Because in order to succeed, I have to start. So, yeah, and I will always make excuses. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I did 3,000 things yesterday. Oh, I have blank. Oh, I am this. Oh, I am that. I will always give myself internally and mentally at least 500 reasons why I shouldn't do something. And then I put them all to the side and I go do it anyway.
Well, and
So,
really that got you where you're at today, right, Chris? I mean, you I want our listeners to understand because I made this mistake with my ex. She went to 8 or 9 different recovery centers. And after about the third one, when she says, I'm going back to recovery, me, it's like, yeah, who gives a shit? So what? So what? You've gone through 3 already. You still haven't figured it out. I want our listeners to know what a complete asshole I was at that time because I wasn't understanding. I get a little
Yes.
emotional talking about it because she never gave up. She still continued to give it a shot. I've known people who have been on my show who went through 23 rehabs,
Yep.
but they never gave up. And now their life is amazing today. So someone like you said, you'd go and then come back and then go and kind of go back. To have people in your corner that can still say, this time you can do it. Don't be like me going, yeah, who gives a shit? So what? You failed all these other times. It took almost up to the 7th to 8th time before someone told me, why are you so upset? At least she's not given up before it finally rang inside here.
Now it's those wise people around us, man. They show us what we need to know at the exact moment we need to know it. And I talk a lot about, when I first got sober, I was real gung ho, like yelling, screaming, nuts, because it was such a revolutionary thing for me. Like the way I used to feel was so bad versus the way that I felt after I took the 12 steps, that I was evangelizing everywhere. It was like, this is the only way to get sober. You're going to kill people if you talk about any other way. And I was just a complete nut job for at least 3 or 4 years, pretty much offending everybody with like a brain in recovery. And I feel like a lot of people after that experience get real excited and really just want to shout it from the mountaintops. And after a period of time, some guys who'd been around a little bit longer than me were like, yo, Chris, you're a little bit out there with this stuff. You do realize like there are other paths. This is not the only way. And I was like, whatever, this is the only way. And after a couple more times with a couple more wise people talking to me, I started to be like, oh, interesting. And then the opioid epidemic really started to fire up and I started to lose half my generation. After a period of time, it became pretty clear that like I don't have the answers. I don't have every answer. I know what worked for me. I know what was effective for me. But like, who am I to turn to you and say, like, don't take a Suboxone? Who am I to turn to you and say, don't go to rehab for the 34th time because you failed 33 other times? And
Yeah.
truly, Al, don't feel too bad about being a butthead. I think we all do that. We all have that. And society kind of created that for us. And we're brought up, trained to almost believe that people who use drugs are bad people. And I feel like it takes some time, some energy to break that stigma, to break that societal almost curse, if you will. Don't feel too bad, but definitely talk about it because there are folks in that exact situation right now that need to hear that. There are other paths, there are ways around, and don't ever give up on anybody. As long as you have a heartbeat, recovery's possible.
Absolutely. That was one of my missions when I first started this podcast over 3 years ago, was to help get rid of that stigma because I was the stigma. I've shared on the show many times. I used, when I'd go downtown Salt Lake City and see the unsheltered or the alcoholics and drug addicts, and I'd make my comments underneath my breath or whoever was in my vehicle with me, and now here I've been in the recovery community for over 3 years. I have met some of the most amazing individuals you will ever frickin' meet who will do anything for you to help you. If it's -10 outside, they'll take their frickin' coat off for you and give it to you if you're cold. That's the sacrifice they'll give to you because they've gone through a part of their life that they don't want to go to and they know what life means to them. When the rest of us, I think, okay, not the rest of us, a lot of us, we take that for granted and we see other individuals who may be suffering because we don't know what their background is. We don't know what put them in that position because having these guests, I mean, you're the 280th guest I've had on my show. And to hear all the many different stories that I've heard and all their different journeys, I mean, there's been guests where I'm like, oh my gosh, I could have been in your shoes so freaking easy. Because if that happened to me, I would want to numb my shit too. Definitely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's so much trauma and so much stigma and just so much negativity around. And I kind of feel like there's so many people who don't feel it. And if you don't feel it, it's hard to feel. Honestly, until you have a family member, a loved one, a friend, somebody close to you go through it, it's very difficult to understand what's happening. And I think a lot of that lack of understanding is what leads to that stigma. And that's why education is so important. And that's why we kind of launched the Babaconda Productions YouTube with all of our Night of Recoveries and the docu-series Repurposed, where we meet with people and interview them about how they found their purpose. That education truly goes a long way, because once you're armed with the facts about yourself and the facts about what's going on with addiction, you're then in a much better position to be able to help folks around you, help your community.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is just my version of it. We have to go through something in our life for us to really find our purpose, our why. I worked 24 years in manufacturing, lost my job almost 15 years ago due to a dirty UA because I was snorting cocaine and drinking every Friday and Saturday night. Then she's now my ex-wife just last year. She fell into alcoholism and not realizing it. And I started connecting my dots backwards a couple years ago. Everything that's happened to me the past 15 years has led me to exactly where I'm at. And 3 years ago, when we left the studio, I used to have a studio. When we left, my wife was with me at the time. And on the way home, she's the one that said, "You found your purpose. You found your why." And I didn't even see it at that time. And she was 100% spot on, because it's led me in so many different directions now in the positive that I would have not ever seen happening.
It's always pretty cool to think how other people always see everything before we do, not just in addiction, just kind of everywhere else. And I love that. And it really kind of reinforces that my brain is not be all end all like I used to think it was, because other people are able to see things before me. I don't have all the answers. So I should really look at those other people who see me and ask them what they're seeing and take their words to heart and, improve where I need to improve.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we definitely need that. I mean,
Mhm.
when I lost my job, I had a friend call me up and basically just tell me the truth. And he goes, Al, people didn't trust you. I'm like, what do you mean? I never stole from anybody or anything like that. And they're like, no, you were always looked at as a liar and a manipulator. And I basically told him he was full of shit. And I really had to start thinking a little bit more. And I went, oh my gosh, he's 100% right. He is 100% right. And it took me losing my job to really go in deep, deep within inside myself to go, who do I want to be as an individual? Because I thought I was this amazing creature God put on this earth, and I found out I was just a speck of nothing. And I
Yep.
didn't want that to happen, especially now that I'm a papa. I mean, I want my grandkids to see this amazing person, right? And it's just not for the glorification for myself. It's just somebody that they looked up to and go, my papa was an amazing human being because he had love and care for other individuals.
It right there. That's the ticket. And I wouldn't have agreed with that a couple of years ago, but I actually very much agree with that now.
Yeah. Because you're living it now yourself. I mean, you have been, right? Because you talked about spending time with your children.
Yeah, and it's like over the course of time, you think about there's so many different seasons in your life, and I'm not quite as advanced in life as you yet, Al, but I've seen a lot of different seasons, and really being able to lean into those seasons when they come to you is one of the most beautiful parts of life and one of the most beautiful parts of growth, I think. Because when that's faced, I could have said, no, I just want to keep doing the same thing I've been doing. I just want to work, 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 work. Kids be damned, whole other generation ignored. That could have been my choice when faced with it, but instead I looked at it and I said, look, this is a new season of my life. It's pretty clear that these kids need my attention way more than my businesses. and I moved in that direction. And it was a rather simple decision. I mean, it was difficult, but simple. So I just, man, so cool to even think about that I'm a dad now.
Yeah.
And one day maybe I'll be a granddad.
I'm sure. I'm sure you will. You know, years down the road, yeah, of course. It's I tell you what's it's an amazing experience. You know, and I'll share something with you really quick. I was big into hunting. You know, here in the West, I mean, hunting is a huge, huge thing. I remember at the age 5, 6 years old going out with my dad and you know, deer hunting or bird hunting, whatever it may be, taught me the love of the mountains. And all of a sudden I have a grandchild. I have 2 daughters, then I have a granddaughter, and my lust, my thrill for going hunting and stalking something and killing it disappeared. It was gone. I mean,
Oh,
if I even go fishing, I like to catch and release, and if the fish is too hurt where I can't release it, I feel bad because I killed a fish. It's crazy by having a grandchild what that's done what's that done to my life, and still to this day, my oldest granddaughter's almost 13. The next one is she just turned 10. My grandson's gonna be 8 in July, and still to this day, Chris, they come up and whew, see, I get emotional even think about it. They come and they wrap those arms around me. I get tears in my eyes every single time because
man,
that is life. That is absolutely life right there.
you're gonna make me cry too, Al. Don't make me
Oh,
cry about it. You know?
yeah.
But it's so true. You know, like that love, the love of children is so pure, especially before the world gets to beat that love out of them. I mean, that is what I aspire to be like as I grow, is more like childlike love. Is just love everybody. Period.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you've done, where you've been, what's happening, what's happened to you. You deserve love. You're a human. Period. So I think we should all learn from children in that regard. And I think as far as it goes with being a grandparent, my dad used to be a pretty mean, rough and tumble guy when I was a kid. And I get to watch him sit with my baby, hold him and bounce him on his knee and laugh and cackle and smile. And you're right, being a granddad definitely changes people. And it's such a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and life has a way of changing us in 2 different directions, and it's our choice which direction we want to go. Because we could get meaner and ornerier, yeah, or we can choose to go, you know what, I think I'll pick the other and head that direction. And when you said at the beginning of the show about you know, being your 7-year-old self again in a way. And I've had some coaching in the past years, and every time I've had this coaching, well, let me rephrase that. Not every time, but the majority of the time, they said, bring that little boy back. Bring him back. And I've done some really deep meditation on the age that I want to be bringing it back. And I tell you what, some of the times when I'm having a rough day, I have to stop, do some heavy breathing, get some breath work going, and bring that little boy back into me where if I see a puddle in a parking lot, I'm going to run and go jump in it. I'm going to splash. Why not? Right? Because again, that was how easy life was for us back in those times.
You're not wrong. I mean, I love this chat because this is the real stuff right here. I mean, if you can bring that love, if you can be like a child in that way, life gets so easy. It's so big and so beautiful and so much easier. And you're not worried about what other people are thinking about you. You're not worried about, finances. You're not worried about any of those things. You're just worried about love and what you can bring to the world. That's what I always want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, and we when we're in that childlike mindset, we don't put that judgment on other individuals, right? Color of your skin doesn't mean anything. Your religion doesn't mean anything. Your political belief doesn't mean anything. Of course, we don't have one at that age. However,
Yeah,
we see everyone as just another child, right? It's just someone we want to spend time with, and especially if we have fun. That
yeah.
all that's is what matters. And then, like you said just a second ago, we allow society to get a hold of us and completely change and turn us in a complete different direction that still can take us down a pretty good road, but the majority of the time it doesn't.
Yep. And doesn't it suck that you have to be much older when you get wiser?
Yes. Yep.
Yep. It sucks now that I'm old, now I can say it a little bit.
Yeah.
See the
Well,
grays.
you're definitely not old, my friend. I mean, I'm going to be 61 in July, and I still don't look at myself as old.
I know, I feel that. It's a joke. It's a running joke. I call my dad the old man. He's only 18 years older than me, and it's we just call him the old man.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
always have. It's just an amusement thing, and he's really more like a peer in age because he's not that much older than me. And now I'm what 36 years older than my baby. So we're gonna have a polar opposite experience. I'm going to be old and crusty, and
I like how you said rusty because I do physical work, concrete during the
yeah,
day, and usually from the job site back to the yard, I've rusted within 5 minutes of the ride right back. And my brother has a jacked up Dodge, and it's like jumping out of a 4-story building, and I'm usually sliding off the seat and waiting for the impact when I hit the ground. Yeah,
oh man, I feel that. I feel that.
yeah, yeah. Chris, do you got something with your years of experience and things that you've gone through in your past? You have something, I don't know, maybe it's something wise that you'd like to share with people, just something to get their thinking gears kind of turning a little bit. Because both you and I know as we get older, we start seeing life in a different way. There's things that really start meaning a lot more to us than drugging or drinking or chasing women or guys, whatever it may be. What would you throw out there?
I think the most wise thing I could toss out there is just don't ever believe you know everything. I spent a lot of time thinking I knew everything, and it may have been youthful indiscretion. It may have just been because I'm a butthead. I don't know. But once I opened my mind and kind of started going with the flow of the universe took me places I never thought I could go. And it really leads me to believe that if everybody just kind of took that approach and allowed the universe to move them where they needed to be, remained aware enough of the opportunities presented and took advantage of them, this would be a much better country. Might all be much, much, much more together, uh, and really way less division. So I have tons and tons of friends who are Republicans and tons who are Democrats, tons who are libertarians, and some who are Greens, and some who are independents, and some who are Christians, and some who are Buddhists, and some who are Taoists, and some who are atheists, and some who are none of those things. And none of those things divide any of us. We're all still able to be friends. We're all still able to love each other. We're all still able to discuss our ideas peacefully in a friendly way. And it just blows my mind how every time we see something different, our base nature is to attack it. So I
Yeah,
think the wisdom would be remain open minded, learn from people, love people, love people. That's the advice right there.
I love that advice. I really do because one of the words I've been working really hard on getting out of my vocabulary is the word belief. And it's because there's the word lie in there. So whatever my belief, why do I have to look at it? It's my job to get you to see my view. What makes my view right? I mean, who said
Who
other
knows?
than me, right? Other than me, I say it's right. However, when you follow exactly the advice that you just shared, life goes down a smoother road. I mean, it really does. Yes, you're still going to hit potholes. I mean, life is going to throw shit balls at us because that's what life does to help us grow. And I
Tons of them.
guess I need to change my verbiage on that. I've been using that more on more shows, the shit ball, because I think it really speaks a lot.
It
It says
does.
a
It
lot.
does. It's valuable.
Yeah, but like you said, when you allow life to just happen, whatever it may be, and you just go with it, because I think Chris, I know you will definitely understand this. When we do everything we can to control where our life is going to go, man, it's like steering a wheel on a freaking icy road. I mean, seriously, it is. You can turn all you want and hit the brakes. The car's going to go where the hell it's going to go. And I'm sure being in, PA, you get some winters where it's just like that, and we get that here in Salt Lake as well. That when you let go of the wheel and just let life take you where it goes, my gosh, the journey is so much better.
So much better. But it's also almost impossible to do that right away. It takes a ton and tons and tons and tons of practice because the base, I mean, I've always been taught to scrape, scratch, claw, step over the next guy, do whatever you have to do to, make something in the world. That's kind of how society built us. And I think that is completely contrary to the way we should be doing things. We should be building the people around us so that they all get better and everything improves. And so I'm a bit of a contrarian, societal contrarian, if you will.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you brought that up, that, it doesn't happen overnight. It's definitely work in progress.
Oh yeah, I still fall prey to my own brain frequently. It is an
Yeah.
absolute, it's a thing. And I'm 17 years deep in the recovery game, and I spend a whole lot of time working with a lot of people and doing a whole lot of things to benefit others. And my brain will still tell me that I'm bad, I'm terrible, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing that wrong, I'm doing this wrong, everything's bad and evil. Yes, my brain will tell me all sorts of crazy things. It's just very important that I don't ever let it get much further than those initial thoughts, because I think it's very possible for me to take one of those things and run with it. And without practicing, not listening to my brain, who knows where I'd be.
Yeah. Yeah. Paying attention to your conscious. There's a book out there called The Conscious Creator. I've read it twice, and it's that's where I started learning how to start practicing of what my thoughts were. And do I hear my thoughts all day long? My brain hears them. I don't all the time. However, it's what do you grasp to believe? And also we talked about fear earlier, and again, it's that fear of going into something unknown. And
Yeah.
I tell you what, guys, if you're a wilderness person like myself and you run across a puddle that's stagnant, it's stagnant for a reason. However, if you choose to move, who knows where life will take you, and it usually will take you somewhere beautiful, at which you just heard even Chris saying that's what's happened to him and many of his friends that he's brought along.
So many, so many of them. And I just love being able to share that with as many people as possible, because when you get to watch the light come on in somebody's eyes, you get to see that moment when they experience peace for the first time. There's nothing cooler.
Yeah, amen to that. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Chris, before we sign off here?
Man, I don't know. I thought this was a great chat. And I guess really, if you're struggling, if you're not feeling as fulfilled as you'd like to, reach out to some people. Reach out to me. Come say hi. I'll be available on all the social media channels. I usually will answer every message I see, especially if you give me a little bit of time, because sometimes they pile up on me.
Yeah,
But truly, even if you are feeling fulfilled, reach out to somebody else. Help them feel fulfilled. Don't settle for being comfortable. And if you settle for being comfortable, I mean, I guess so be it. But I would love it if you turn around and throw that comfortability at somebody else and help them step up another level. And yeah, just here for you. Period. If you just need somebody to talk to, reach out, say hi. Always happy.
I love it. And will you please ask Ronnie to send me all your contact information? Because I'd love to make sure that it's on the caption. Because
Yeah,
as we know, some places aren't just isn't a fit for certain individuals. And
absolutely.
it's nice to have other contacts and be able to have other resources that are out there. Because I mean, we've interviewed people from the UK, Canada, all around the United States. And, maybe where someone else is at, even in Canada, and they hear this show and they don't like the resources there. They've got other resources they could reach out to.
I mean, 2024 is such a beautiful time because we can connect with folks all across the world. And, the number of friends I have in different countries that I don't get to see, obviously, very often. But it's unbelievable. And really, we can connect one on one on a human level from so far away now in 2024 that it's amazing. So who cares where you're at? Reach out, say hi.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Chris, thank you so much for your time, man. I'm with you. This has been a wonderful conversation. I love getting into things like this because it's educational. It's helpful for ourselves as well. It kind of keeps us humble, and hopefully a message was shared today for someone that their light bulb went off and went, okay, I need to start looking at things differently.
absolutely. I mean, gosh, love conversations like this. I mean, we went down a different road than usually, in the recovery talk. Usually, we want to talk about, what my life was like, what happened, and what my life is like now. And I just kind of love diving into these deeper, uh, different aspects of things. So thank you so much, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, thank you for your time. And thank you to all our past guests and all our past sponsors, all you listeners. You guys are the ones that's making this show a success. So thank you so much. I love and appreciate every single one of you. And guys, remember this: addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.